think that was the last time I saw my dad alive. Okay. He wasn't sick. Nothing wrong with him. It was just a visit. So I went to the house. We updated one another. I drove. Back then it was the 2003 4Runner. Properly insured, properly tagged, properly licensed. I visited with him maybe an hour, hour and a half, and I was leaving. So I left the house. I proceeded to get in my vehicle. Once I got in the vehicle, I started it up. It is a one-way street heading one way, because I can't recall now which direction. Heading west. It was a one-way street heading west. No, heading south. Heading south, because it was on Marshfield. But anyway, all of a sudden, an unmarked car jumps in the middle of the street heading at me on this one-way street, flashing his lights. This was before I can turn my steering wheel to get out of the spot. So me in turn straighten my wheel back up to reposition to let this vehicle by, but instead of proceeding by, it stopped right in front of me in my vehicle. So they declared for me to get out of my vehicle. I'm looking around like, okay, I just got through visiting my dad. The day is done. I'm heading out. I thought I was going to let them by, but now they're demanding me to get out of the vehicle that I just got in. Okay, I get out of the vehicle. There proceeds one man to get out of the car, but there were two of them. One hadn't gotten out. The one man that got out, again, was not me. He stood anywhere between, I want to say, 6'3" and 6'5". Pretty big guy. But on the inside, I'm starting to burn because I see something happening again. So I walk over to him, and I guess those that know me will know what I'm getting ready to say now. Hey, Shannon, how about this if you see this? My poker face sucks. So I'm sure what I was feeling on the inside, he saw in my face, but at that point, I did not care. I looked up at him because he was tall. I looked up at him and I was looking in his face, and I guess he didn't like the way I was looking. So by this time, I'm in the gate where my dad lives, leading up to his steps, and he proceeds to grab my arm and turn me around. And I look at, what are you doing? He said, turn around, please, turn around. So I turn around, community, and he proceeds to pull out handcuffs. By this time, I'm probably late 40s. And he puts handcuffs on me. I'm going to talk about that in a moment. So now I am, I'm furious. What are you doing? He said, did you come out of this house? I said, yes. What were you doing in that house? Mind you, again, in my mind, none of your business. So I said, visiting my dad. He says, we got a complaint from that house. Again, I just knew. So I was like, from that house right there, you got a complaint. I was like, what was the complaint? He said there was a domestic complaint. So just to clarify, I said to him, from that house. He said, yes. I said to myself, hogwash. I'm furious. By that time, my niece jumps out of the door. She hollers at the officer, what are you doing with my uncle? He says, you know this guy. Now I'm looking at him like he's, I want to say, I won't say it. But I give him that look. I'm looking up at him and my hand's still in handcuffs. And I'm looking at him. And she says, yes, that's my uncle. You know this guy. Yes. And I'm like looking at him. So he proceeds to grab my shoulder again. Now here's what I noticed in the middle of all of that drama. Like I said, he was between 6'3" and 6'5". Big guy. But like I said, he wasn't me. But as he was touching me with all of his size and all of his height, his fingers were just vibrating in nervousness. And out of all of that, I'm the one that should have been from anger. Like, what is he nervous for? His fingertips just shaking as he was putting the handcuffs on me. He grabs me by my shoulder and turns me around. He's softer now, a little bit gentler. And he takes the handcuffs off. And by that time, I began to march toward my vehicle because I was angry. I looked out of the corner of my eye, and by that time, my dad is in the doorway, but I didn't acknowledge him. I kept to the car. Their vehicle stood in front of my truck still, blocking the way, heading the right way to go. So as soon as I got in my vehicle, I started it up. I jerked it in reverse and I pulled out backwards. And I headed towards 55th and Garfield in reverse. And once I got there, I righted and then I headed home. Why am I talking about this? Here's my caveat. All police officers aren't like that. Let me start there, Renee. We were part of a ministry at one time, probably a couple of times, where there were several in one form or another officer activity. They were members. How about that? I'm okay with police officers. I'm going to take it a step further. This lady right here, who I've been with for almost 40 years, her father was a police officer. But if he looks in the mirror and I look at the mirror with him, we're about the same. The majority of my interactions, they weren't. So again, I want to caveat, all police officers aren't the same. But then there are some. I want to tell you about one more episode, and then I'm going to get into the word that I heard. On the way to work normally, when I was working, I ride the Metra. On this particular day, now I'm in my 50s now. So, meaning this is recent. Less than a couple of years recent. Less than a couple of years recent. But I'd say about a year and a couple of months. Ha! So I'm standing waiting for the train to arrive. And during this period of time, the Lord is working with me. If you look at the video when we were talking about the setting up of our web page and I was presenting the different sections of the web page, we got to the Daily Dose 100 and it talks about the different, the seers, the readers, and so on and so forth. During this period of time, I'm listening to them and observing, and some of the things they're saying are ministering to me. So on the inside, I'm working, I'm doing the shadow work, I'm doing all types of things for self-recovery. So on the train, one of the things I would do is I would recite the I am affirmation, just say those things to myself. So on this particular day, I'm waiting for the train. The train pulls up, and normally where I stand is about where the second train door opens. So on this particular day, there are two conductors in the vestibule of the Metra train. So once I get inside the Metra train and the door closes, I'm trying to give him my ticket. He won't take it. This particular guy, he wouldn't take it. Now he's me. I'm trying to be, respectful with my presentations, but I'm heading somewhere, and you'll understand once I get there. So he won't take the ticket, but the other one that's not saying anything takes my ticket. He punches it. I normally tell him to keep it, and I walk up to the next car. So while I'm waiting for that to happen, this particular guy looks at me. He says, "You can't be in this car." And I say, "Oh." Out of all of the trains that I've rode in history, and that particular line I had been riding for almost 6 years, I've never heard that I could not stand in the vestibule of the train. So I asked him, I'm just being me, community. I said to him, "Excuse me, but did the rules change?" He said, "You can't be in here when we're in the car." And I was like, oh. So I began to use common sense, and I was like, well, he's here, and his coworker is here. They probably want some chum time. That's fine. I would have respected that if he had just said that, but that's not what he said. He said, "You can't be in this car." So I was like, okay, fine. So I took my ticket and I walked to the first car, which I don't normally do, because most people heading downtown, that is the first car they gather in, because everybody wants to be the first off once they get downtown. And that's the last place I want to be. I'm more of a inside man. Some would probably say introvert, homebody, cabin body. That's me. I'm okay, being solo. I'm okay when there's not many people there. I'm fine. And now he's forcing me to go outside of my comfort zone. But fine, I go ahead and do it just to keep the peace. So a few days later, I'm not even thinking about this anymore, community. I'm standing at the spot I normally do, loving God, meditating on good things, not even thinking about what happened. So the car stops at about where I am, and I go inside, and this man said to me, now mind you, I believe him and I were the same age. Some might say, I don't look my age, that's fine, but I would say we're about the same age, but maybe he didn't know. I don't know. But I get on the train, and this is what he said to me, community. "I told you the last time you can't be on this train with us." And I looked at him. Ow! At that instant, that was worse than being cuffed for the first time in almost 50 years of life over frivolous nothing. So on the inside, again, he would not take my ticket. I presented it to him. He wouldn't take it. The other guy took it, punched it, not saying a word. He's not defending, nothing. He remains neutral, not saying anything. So I go to the car, to the first car again, and I'm standing there musing over what happened. And I was like, this is. So I go to work, I muse on it, and then I let it go. I know this is running on. I know it's running on, but I'm going to get there. So a few days later, maybe a week later, again, I had pushed it out, didn't think any more about it. The train pulls up, and it happens to stop in the same spot. Some will probably say, well, why don't you move? Why didn't you train?